Hello and welcome back to Get Ben Riding. I am so excited that the embargo has finally been lifted and I can start speaking about Ride 6. I've been playing this game for about a week now and I am here to tell you about the things that I think are good, are bad, and some of the things that are just different and slightly weird. Stay tuned for the rest of the video because I'm going to deep dive into Ride 6, showing you all the new features, everything that's good about it, some of the stuff that's not so good about it, and I'm also going to be telling you why I think Milestone made a massive mistake in the build up to launching Ride 6. So I've made loads of videos about Ride 3, 4 and 5 in the past, comparisons to MotoGP, etc, and you can watch those on another occasion. But the first thing I want to say is that when I start getting into the different game modes, obviously I can't show you a full race and everything that I'm doing in the background, but don't worry, because following this in the playlist there will be an entire race in each class in depth with all the replay and everything as well, so you can go back to that afterwards and you can watch that gameplay in more detail. So don't worry if I skim over some of the detail, it's only because there's more stuff that's coming later. So there's a lot to cover, let's get straight into it. Ride 6 opens by helping you set the game to suit your playstyle, and there are some genuinely welcome accessibility options here that include colorblind modes and the ability to play using one hand on a single controller. The game starts by asking you to choose a male or female avatar, which you'll probably customize later, but once that's done, it throws you straight into the first of 2 trial races at the Red Bull Ring using KTM's new RC8. Now this is where Ride 6 asks you to decide which play mode suits you. Arcade, which has lots of assists and no real way to crash or lose, or simulation for the purist player. The difference between these two modes is massive. I suspect many riders will choose simulation, but this is clearly about making the game accessible for non-bikers too, and honestly, that isn't a bad thing at all. After choosing your gameplay mode, it's time to pick your first bike, and you're presented with 2 free options. You can either go supermoto or super sport. Next up, it's time to personalise your rider. Pick your name, your number, your rider features before heading to the shop for some riding kit. Personalise both your street and off-road riding outfits. Straight away, there are more brands, more colours and more options than I've ever seen in any ride game to date, which is a great start. You then choose a riding style across the 3 categories, which are road, motard and off-road, along with your rider's general riding style on the bike, and now you're ready to get started. So depending on the version you've purchased, Ride 6 comes with up to 340 bikes from 21 manufacturers across 7 categories, which are sport bike, naked, endurance sport bike, motard, scooter, enduro and bagger. Enduro and bagger are both brand new for Ride 6. Ride 6 has been given loads more energy by presenting everything around the idea of a festival called Ridefest. And I'll be honest, my initial concern was that this is going to be a bit of a rehash of Forza Horizon, a game that I thought sucked ass, but I was really surprised. Previous ride games lacked any sense of occasion. They were just a bunch of random championships with no crowd and no atmosphere. Ridefest actually feels like a real event, something that would be put on to showcase racing across the huge depth of classes, and suddenly it all makes sense. Ridefest breaks the game down into 3 core sections: customize, compete and purchase. With customize, you're going to be able to upgrade your own motorcycles, design liveries for bikes and clothing, and change your rider and riding style. In compete, it's where you're going to find career mode, custom races, hit the time trials or jump into multiplayer. Annoyingly, there's still no split screen option, which is disappointing, but there is a 12 player online multiplayer with full crossplay. There's also a riding school option for the uninitiated, which we'll come back to later. Purchase? Well, does exactly what it says on the tin. You can buy new bikes or browse the new used bike feature. Overall, I think the Ridefest is laid out really well. It's easy to navigate, it feels fresh, and it relies far less on text heavy menu systems. So what did I do first? Well, I really wanted to get a feel for the game on a track that I know well, which is Mugello, riding Ducati's new Panigale V4 in a time trial to dial in the graphics, physics and rider aids. Milestone specifically said that they'd updated the physics with a focus on braking dynamics, and immediately that was apparent. I am running professional mode with a manual gearbox with split front and rear brakes. With the electronics on default settings, the brake simulation feels far more realistic than Ride 5. It's taken me quite a few laps to find my rhythm. The brakes feel more progressive, the rear brake has far more influence and it actually encourages backing the bike in. Acceleration feels better too, the bike moves, spins up wheelies and slides far more naturally than it did before. Crucially, I feel like I can steer the bike with the rear without an imminent 10-foot high side. Milestone also says they've improved the haptic feedback, and they definitely have. You get far more feedback through the brakes, tyre squeal gives you one last warning before you crash, and the whole bike just feels more fluid. Rider animation has improved too, with the feet and hands moving more accurately during gear changes and throttle inputs, and the rider even keeps looking in the direction of travel if you miss the corner. And finally, the atmosphere. Crowds cheer when you wheelie, they boo when you crash, and it adds so much more depth and finally makes it feel like you're racing for something. I love it. Despite my excitement, sadly some of the familiar gripes are still there. The bike sounds aren't quite right, the gear change sounds are out of sync with the movement of the foot. Your knee doesn't really ever touch the ground or react to it when it does. Your foot doesn't react when it touches the road surface. There's no skid marks, and occasionally the steering just completely spazzes out. Come on, Milestone, these are details that matter. So next I thought I'd get into some of the new features in Ride 6. Now, jumping straight into career mode, it's had a proper rethink. You're not any longer forced into endless lists of made up cups riding every single class, even the ones that you hate. Instead, you unlock new classes, bikes and events by earning XP and choosing your own path. Early on, you can jump straight into it, either in the sport bike, enduro or bagger class, and this means you can progress through the game without being forced into categories that you really don't enjoy. So let's jump straight into baggers. Now, I'll say this straight away, I'm not a personal fan of bagger racing, I just don't see the point, but Ride 6 surprised me. I actually expected them to feel like big Ride 5 bikes, and they really don't. The first thing you notice is the torque. They redline at 6,500 RPM, they wheelie violently off the line and in pretty much every gear, and they take loads of getting used to. There's also a really annoying delay here when the lights go out, which causes you to misjudge the start and a wheelie immediately. This needs fixing. If you get them off the line, you'll spend most of the racing bouncing off the rev limiter. With the new braking dynamics, it's really easy to fold the front and just as easy to high side them, but the improved AI and contact physics mean that you can actually bang fairings without instantly crashing. They're difficult to master, easy to slide. Visually they're spot on. The onboard cameras look absolutely awesome even if they're basically unusable. There are only a few baggers available, all from Indian, with Harley Davidson missing entirely. They don't feel like anything else in Ride 6 and require a totally different riding style. My advice? Reduce the traction control and ABS, keep some anti-wheelie unless you're a real rear brake demon, and be very careful with engine braking. So now let's take a look at Enduro. Now this was a category that really interested me when the game first popped up. It was either going to be brilliant or awful, and the answer is that it's complicated. There are loads of really cool bikes we've never seen before in the Ride 6 game, like the Honda XADV 750. The tracks are mostly fictional and set on gravel or dirt, and the dirt, well, it grips like damp tarmac. The surface isn't rutted, it's perfectly smooth, and the haptic feedback is frankly, it's pretty crap. Turn off most of the rider aids before your first race, because sliding is absolutely essential if you want to get anywhere here. Once you do that, it genuinely becomes quite fun, despite its obvious flaws. For the first time in a ride game, you can actually hang the rear out and get away with it, but realism is absolutely full of holes. There's far too much rear traction. The bike doesn't really search for grip. There's very little dirt spray. The bikes barely get dirty at all. The tracks on the surface disappear. It doesn't rut up. There's no vibration really through the controller. A Milestone, there's no proper jumps. Will it stop me from enjoying this? Absolutely not. But for a sim, this is a bit of a shit show. Scooters. Why this exists in this game, I don't know. I don't find it fun in any way to ride the scooters. They have no feel or feedback. They're slow. It could be the most boring game ever created, but if you love scooters and you love chaos, I'd recommend go and play GTA. There aren't enough scooters for it to really be fun, but I guess the money has come from sponsorship from Italjet, given that they feature predominantly in this class. Where I will say we've got a bit of a bonus is with the addition of the ADV 750X. Now this is a bike I've ridden in real life and I'm actually about to post a review on, and it is exceptional fun in the off-road mode, particularly in the arena setting. So I found myself using the ADV off-road, but not necessarily in the way that they intended scooters to be ridden. So I thoroughly recommend that. It's great fun, and if you ever get the chance to ride one in real life, do that. Endurance racing. So this is not a feature I particularly used a lot in Ride 5, but I've been playing it a fair bit, and if your attention span is longer than 6 minutes, which is about the average length of a race in any other class, this could be for you. And these are, for the most part, race modified machines pushing 200 horsepower. They really challenge your skills in Ride 6, especially if you turn all the rider aids off. And there are career mode championships in this class, but for the sake of demonstration, we'll just jump into a custom race using the quick race mode. Now, the good thing about this is, after you've selected either your own machine or rented one, which you can do in pretty much every class, you can pick your track, you can pick the length of time that you're going to race, in this case 20 minutes, which means when the leader crosses the line at 20 minutes, there's one lap remaining, otherwise known as 20 plus 1, similar to what they do in motocross. Now, to mix things up, what you can do is add tyre wear, add fuel, which wears down relative to the race length. You can choose where you start from on a normal grid, a rolling start, or as I prefer, the Le Mans running start. Now, if you don't want to qualify, you don't have to. You can either cheat and pick your starting position or let the AI decide for you. It's a bit of a shame that the running start is automated. This could have been quite funny, seeing you and your friends run all over the circuit trying to find your bike. So as the race progresses, you'll notice the AI is starting to behave slightly differently, and with the goal of making the tyres and fuel last. Now, tyre wear and fuel depletion, like I say, it's a scale relative to the race length, which ensures you'll need at least one pit stop. Now, my first pit stop was quite badly mistimed. Ultimately, the bike ended up running out of fuel and going into a limp mode, which cost me a shitload of positions. And when I finally did make it into pit lane, I was presented with tyre compound choices and fuel load options, which I wasn't prepared for, and ultimately ended my race. But I took on too much fuel, I took on a hard tyre which absolutely murdered my lap times, but despite that I really enjoyed this. You've got to be tactical, it's not just about outright speed. One of the really fun things to do with the endurance racing is to use dynamic weather, so effectively mid-race you can set the race up so that it rains, effectively creating a flag to flag scenario like you would get in Moto GP, World Superbikes and similar. However, mid-race the rain started to come down pretty heavily, everyone was on slicks, and the AI lost maybe 1 second a lap tops, which is nowhere near enough. It should be 10% of the total lap time, give or take. The bike still handled about 90% the same as it did in the wet, and the only real difference being the braking distances were ever so slightly affected. At no point did it feel like I was riding on a wet track with slicks, and at no point did the AI pit for wet tyres, which is a massive oversight. I love the idea of flag to flag racing, and once again this is Milestone having a great idea and then half-assing the execution. It won't stop me playing it, but it's just another really stupid mistake. With the supermoto class in Ride 6, it's a case of evolution rather than revolution. I didn't really find that it was very well polished in Ride 5, and that's still the case in Ride 6, but some of the modes that allow you to play supermoto now just add a slightly new dynamic. I really like this flat track element in the arena on the supermoto. There aren't really that many supermoto bikes, there aren't really that many supermoto races, but if you're looking for something short, sharp, quite fun and entertaining, it's very good. Similarly flawed to some of the other new classes as well. Certainly graphically there are some issues. The fact that you're running on slick tyres, on dirt, the fact that there's no dirt spray, again are all things that sadly have become an expectation from Milestone. But this game mode is actually quite fun, and I love the fact that you're in an arena and it gives you a real sense of purpose and occasion. You can hear the crowd. Yeah, it's just a fun game mode to play. It doesn't add a great deal to Ride 6, but I definitely think when you combine the Enduro element, the supermoto element and the baggers, it just gives you something that will keep you interested in the new Ride 6 game. So as with Ride 5, you can purchase bikes new or used and modify them. Now this hasn't changed too much, except the fact that you can now go in on used bikes and see what has already been modified. So I think Ride's plan is to change the used bikes that you can purchase infrequently, so you can buy specials, but this is one that I've already bought or been gifted. As with Ride 5, you can remove the number plate and indicators to make the bike look more racy, and then you can add a host of performance enhancing aftermarket parts. Now this hasn't really changed, it's very similar to how it was. The main difference is that you can add 5 or 6 different performance enhancing modifications that potentially might change the class of the bike, but not pay for them until the end. What this does is it stops you from over-speccing a bike for a particular class. So if you're looking to move from S to R, for example, you can move to R without over-speccing the bike and then having to retrospectively down-spec it for another class. It's quite a good way of doing it. It itemizes the purchase and it shows you what the performance enhancement is for each individual item, so you can make a decision as to what to remove to keep it in the right class. I just thought that was pretty cool. There aren't really any more performance parts available than there was in the other Ride games, albeit maybe a few different manufacturers. It remains pretty much the same, and one of my frustrations with changing the exhaust in particular is that it still doesn't change the noise of the bike, but I guess that is a first world problem, eh? As it was in Ride 5, so you can also customise the paint jobs on your bike, helmet, suits, the works, from a number of different templates and predetermined stickers, or you can just go in and you can select an alternate paint job from the manufacturer themselves. One of the things that has changed is the fact that you can change the surface material, so you can choose from glass and satin, opaque, lacquered and so on, and you can also do so with all the decals, and that is obviously to replicate the paint finish, which is quite popular on road bikes now. They all come in satin or gloss or matte finishes, and that's not really something that was ever really truly represented in the ride game, so I think that's pretty good. You can also individually paint your chain, your wheels and all the rest of it, or create your own custom liveries. Now if you're anything like me, you'll probably just wait until some of the masterminds on the forums appear on here and start to create all the race replicas and stuff like that. But what I've seen from Ride 6 is that the amount of predetermined stickers, templates, overlays, textures is far more detailed than it was in any of the ride games before it. There are more manufacturer stickers for sponsors, more typefaces and fonts, more clothing brands, even the manufacturers' logos and stuff like that. It should just make creating liveries so much easier for those of you who are particularly creative. So crack on, good luck, and I look forward to seeing the good work that you produce. So with all of that said and done, is Ride 5 worthwhile? Well, if you want a riding simulator, there isn't one that's better on the market. It's as simple as that. It's a massive step forward from Ride 5 in almost every way, but it still has the same Ride 5 DNA. And with that, it's inherited a lot of the Ride 5 inadequacies, let's say. And whilst it sounds really quite petty, they are really quite simple mistakes that should have been solved in Ride 2. Issues with the interaction between the rider and the road, graphical issues, the fact that there are really no differences in terms of whether you're riding off-road or on-road. The handling of the bikes don't really feel dissimilar. The haptic feedback, whilst it's been improved on the braking, has been lost elsewhere. No skid marks, just really silly things that I think Milestone should have picked up on, almost like a housekeeping element. And I mentioned at the beginning of the video that I thought Milestone had really messed up in the marketing for this game pre-launch, and I stand by that. I think they focused so much on the Ridefest element of it, it actually put a lot of us off. A lot of the comments that I saw from you guys was that everyone thought it was going to be like an open world, Forza Horizon style arcade game, and that would lose the simulation element of the game, and it hasn't. It's still very much a sim, and it's definitely sort of stepped in the right direction. But they've shoved the Enduro, supermoto elements and the bagger into the game to add something more, maybe just to get people into the game, and it does that. But in doing so, they've really diluted where they've put their attention. It feels like there are not as many bikes as there should be. It feels like there should be some more new tracks, and maybe all of that will come in DLC in good time. So in summary, I would say absolutely, if you love racing games like I do, if you love motorcycles, you will not get better than the Ride 6 game, and I include MotoGP in that as well. Obviously there's some licensing issues that prevent Milestone from putting true race bikes and stuff in here, and I get that. But I feel like we're only ever really 90% of the way there with Milestone. I always feel like that last 10% is just enough just to ruin the experience a little bit for people. So for those of you that have bought the game, you'll love it. It's awesome. There's loads to explore. There's loads to unpack. If you stay tuned and watch the series that follows this video, you'll see the full races of all of the examples that I've showed you in the review. You'll see the full races and the corresponding replays, so you can see it from gameplay and alternate angles. And I'll be putting more and more content out over the next couple of days to follow it up and give you a bit more flavour for what else is available. But for now, thanks very much for watching. Please like, share and subscribe to this video. I put a lot of time into these videos. I was really happy that I was entrusted to try the game a few days in advance, and I hope you guys have benefited from it. But for now, I'd love to hear your feedback and your comments. Constructive only, guys, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care.